Yes, the Premiership Final.
Premiership Final, absolutely. It happened now, it's a while ago, obviously, as we're uploading this on Friday. It was last week, which is an age in rugby news, but it was an absolutely phenomenal game of rugby. I thoroughly enjoyed.
Yeah.
And like you say, Exeter they had a great start, obviously, but they came with a serious mindset to play rugby and to beat Saracens.
Yeah.
And when they did get in the 22, they reverted to their old very effective strategy of being super conservative and super tight and holding onto the ball and trying to drive through Saracens, which Saracens I think normally wouldn't stand as easily as they stood on the day. They definitely seemed a little off.
Definitely. Well, it's like it's a concern for them that they're, for such a big strong team and a big physical team, they sometimes struggle to control teams that are keeping it very tight against them and keeping it quickly but physically kind of picking and jamming, and they struggle to resource that area, and Exeter found dividends.
Yeah, I mean, Exeter are great in that area. I think Sarries' fringe defence was below par usually for them.
Yeah, I think a few aspects of their game, you could probably say that as well. Some of the halfbacks' control in the first half was a little off from both, and that's where it allowed people like Nick White were more stars of the show than the Sarries halfbacks, which I wasn't expecting leading into it, certainly in the first half. But Sarries have such a game plan that it meant they were never quite safe, and that was kind of what we were saying.
It's not even just a game plan. It's not even like we've been describing
it's more a style of play or an identity of team, where it just means that when a team like Exeter gets a few scores ahead of them, they're never quite safe. Yeah, because they can still click and strike.
We've described what they have that's good in large part as structure, and it's this great structure that's built on options and everything else. But there's a real instinctual layer to their attacking play that I think bailed them out on a few occasions, just because when they needed the scores they were coming up with them. But the instinct is just, they pick the right lines. All of them now, it's drilled into them. I mean, like there's little sequences that went on in that game when Saracens were attacking and they needed to find a score, when they had been stuttering and everything else. But just when the moment needs it, they'll pick the exact right angle. There was a great one, I think, when Billy Vunipola around the corner just picked an angle right between two defenders off a line break, received that ball and went through. And it's a constant doing of that. So the 3 or 4 options are all picking really, really excellent angles, and it's not something that's necessarily drilled into them like in a structural way. It's just something that has been bred. It's an instinct that has been bred into them. Yeah, and I think that was, in my view, the telling factor, as has been the case all year. We know about Sarries' defence and everything else, but I think they're the next level nature of their attacking play has been what made them the best team in Europe. Well, it
makes bad performances like this was for large portions of the team. Like Itoje came into his own in the last 20, but for the first 60 he was kind of all over the place.
It was a crazy call to get man of the match. Like there was a post put up by somebody saying like I want the superpower that gets me a yellow card, giving away 40% of my team's total penalties and still getting man of the match.
Yes, that was a bit bonkers. I thought Billy Vunipola was actually the one.
Yeah, maybe they didn't want to give it to him for whatever reason, but
he was actually awesome in the first half.
He was awful throughout the game. He was another guy picking choice angles all
and getting
the time.
Hands free.
Getting his hands free, exactly.
But then they were messing them up more often than not in the first half. They were actually creating these chances and not capitalising. The few times they did, they still had that excellent response factor where Exeter did score first, but then it was an insta try, or not quite insta. There were
instant yellow card and then try.
And it was like, that's just the Sarries way these days. And then just some of the ways they bailed themselves out. The cross kick for Liam Williams later in the game.
That was such a crucial moment just after Exeter had taken, I think, more than a 10-point lead. Yeah. And they hit back, and then they didn't stop hitting back when they hit back that time, with some beautiful plays. Another aspect of that like killer play that came towards the end of the game for Maitland's try when Wigglesworth made that break is just I wish I could remember who it was. I feel like it was Billy Vunipola, but it was somebody just one of the pack picking an absolute herring of a line, looking like he's going to smash a little short ball off Wigglesworth, and 2 defenders converge on him, and just as Wigglesworth is timing his dummy pass at exactly the right moment, the 2 players are convinced that this is going to be a run up and this is going to be a tough tackle in and of itself. They peel off on him, and then Wigglesworth's gone. And it's that combination of aggressive and really good lines. It was a good line that Billy Vunipola had picked again, even though 2 guys were going to cover it, and then on top of that, the guy in the position to make the decision, making the right decision. And I just think I've thought for a couple of years now that Saracens' attacking play, in terms of just as a team where they're at, rather than just individual talent, which they have as well in the likes of Liam Williams, etc. But their just attacking style and attacking play is next level. It's like the Crusaders. It's for club rugby. It's elite.
It definitely is. And
but
compared to what
elite,
Exeter have, because Exeter played a bit more rugby than we've seen from them this season in general. As well, I thought Slade's try was excellent. The way they
Slade
spread
has
it,
that in him.
He does. He got carded in the first half, but that was a kind of a 7 points or a card kind of situation, and it turned out to be both. But he kind of for a slap down. But that little pass and then the chase is good. A bit more linking to the wide channels for that Exeter team, especially when they're acquiring a Stewie Hogg for next season and such. That's progress for them. They need to build layers to what they have, which is already a stellar pack. Talking about club level, their pack can compete with anyone in Europe. And they just need to add more strings to their bow. But it was telling in the second half. Things like Wigglesworth making that impact for Sarries is just kind of symptomatic of just how good their bench is compared to where Exeter are at.
It's definitely
when Exeter's key playmaker, Nick White went off, there was a noticeable dip in quality of service from the 9, and that had a knock-on effect to the rest of the team then. And then any other changes you're making, if your rhythm's that
it's always when you can bring guys like that, and that's the advantage of the competition they've got. Like Wigglesworth he's not lost his jersey for a dip in form. He's a guy who got sort of outplayed by Ben Spencer coming up, but he can still come on and do a job in a final, and that's massive. Obviously, that's crucial. And Tompkins is another perfect example.
Great example. He has been great in great form. Bagged his hat trick the week before. It was questions of whether he would start, but then in a Brad Barrett is your club captain, you want him there, and there's always kind of these questions over his fitness at the end of the game. So Tompkins on the bench was a must anyway, because you get the feeling at that high intensity where Barrett's not going to give an inch. He's probably only going to last 40 minutes to maybe an hour. I think it was somewhere between. Did he go off at halftime? No, I think it was in the second half that he did go off. But Tompkins came in perfectly slotted in, was very keen to work, eager. Again, another one picking great lines and occupying defenders.
And they're all operating on that really high level IQ in terms of what they do in attack. It's their defense is great. It's one of the best defenses in Europe, but their attack is much more intelligent than their defense and much harder to replicate. The biggest disservice you can do to Saracens is what some people say, is that they're a team about size. They just aren't.
That's to be fair, size is a huge factor in what they do.
But it's not what they're about.
Men, but the blueprint isn't all that, and it's creating options.
And there are teams like that are failing. Bigger teams even than Saracens who are failing.
But it's interesting where they have a 10 of the quality of Farrell, but a lot of times it's the 9 or the 15 in Good as well, who's operating as that decision maker, which again just is baffling to a defender, because you're wondering where the play is going to come off, and it can be any number of options.
It frees up Farrell. Like Farrell still does a lot of their attacking kicking.
That's true.
He finds himself in the wide channels. He finds himself in different positions. This is part of their structure. That's all pre-planned. But it just eases him off and puts him in a position to think clearly and make the awesome plays that he makes when he gets the ball, like those wide passes, like that cross kick to Liam Williams. When the moment strikes for Faz to make a play, he can and does, and he ends up being less of a controller at 10 and more of a game breaker, because he's such a smart and technical decision maker and really classy operator.
And they rotate him and Good switch inside and out very well as well, so he can be decision maker in the wider channels, servicing some of those guys, those attacking threats they have out wide, or sometimes closer to the ruck. But it means he's very rarely tackled and at the bottom and out of a play for too long, and it's less of a factor when you have other playmakers in the back line. But even with that, it seems to rarely happen. He's more often picking a good pass and getting one of those big forwards onto it and getting over the gain line and going again. It can be a very unstoppable thing we kind of got a sense of that when Liam Williams scored his try, and just that momentum shift in the game, and then the inevitable Jamie George try that came to kill the game. And that was, again, featured a great Mauro Itoje play in the run-up to that, but I think he'd made 3 or 4 in the few minutes previous as well.
He came to life.
He really did.
That's where you just can't buy class.
This is it. And some amount of engine in that boy as well. Like it's crazy fitness the way he can just spark into life after an hour of play and blow people away as if he's just off onto the pitch. Really
that's where the little 10-minute rest early in the game helps.
Probably did a little. Probably a little bit of a factor. It's not ideal, and it was a silly, reckless thing. They do still have that in their repertoire, and to be fair, that's on Exeter were putting them under pressure and
they were
actually asking questions of them, which is
Exeter played really well, and it was an encouraging game for Exeter from the perspective of where they're going to go next season. They've got Stuart Hogg coming in. You know, you could get a fit Cordero back in the business.
That'd be nice.
And then you could have a really sexy looking back three that's Noel and Cordero.
Noel did pick up an injury in that final, and he's now a question mark. We don't know whether he'll
for the World Cup. Yeah, well, there you go.
Which is a bit of a
that's not good news. Hopefully he'll pull through.
He played well. He was another one who played well.
Very well.
They were all playing above themselves in true.
But there was nice little structure to what they were doing. They were going wide a little bit, but for the most part, the game breaking plays are pretty instinctual. Like it's pretty much Henry Slade seeing an option, taking it on, following up.
Flaherty kick return type.
Yeah, which is great plays. But it would be nice to see them actively go to that place a little more often and just try and score off first phase a little more. That said, and on the day that was in it, like this is broad speak for next season in their general games, but like you can't argue with racking up 34 points in the final. And ultimately their defence just wasn't good enough to handle what Sarries bring, which is elite,
particularly towards the end. But that's just the Sarries way as well. Something's got to give after all that pressure. But,
but Exeter. Class team on paper, and it would be
definitely the right two teams, I thought, in the final on that showing, because we were looking at Gloucester beat Exeter twice this season.
Gloucester could have beaten them in the semi as well.
Possible,
they just didn't stand a chance against Saracens.
No, with this is it. But it was a more competitive game, this one, than the Sarries Gloucester one, where I think actually Gloucester match up horrifically against Sarries, whatever.
I want to talk about Exeter's defence not handling what Sarries do. Gloucester's don't either, and Gloucester get beat up and tired, and it affects their offensive play in a big way. Whereas Exeter even can control possession for large parts. They can take breathers. They can manage their sort of cardio and physical intake that way.
But their centres were game for it as well. Actually, Devoto had a good game.
Physical.
This is it. You have to match up to that Sarries midfield, and they did that in the first half. It was a ding-dong battle, and it was actually, for the first half, for the most of it, Exeter were the ones edging it, mainly because they were a bit more accurate. They were trying a bit less in terms of using the full width of the pitch, and certainly once they got into the 22 that was the case, so it was maybe a bit more risk averse, but they were winning contacts and they're getting scores and taking the lead. They were the proactive team for large parts of the game, and it was kind of a sluggish Sarries showing for big parts that ultimately in the end class showed, and just their capacity for finding scores when they need them is great. And it's like you've seen some great champion teams that haven't played that way, but Sarries definitely do, and it means you get the sense they're never out of it, and you also get the sense that if they're ahead, you're not catching them as well. You get that feeling.
What breaks the game for them is just their the attacking base that they can go back to. They just, no matter how they're playing on the day, you can rely on the consistent quality of the lines, structure, the shape, and decision making to pull out plays for them, and they do it in rapid fire. They tire teams out. They wear teams out with their attack. Munster in the semi-final was the closest I've seen to them being shut out and rocked. And that was an interesting picture, and perhaps more of that next season.
It's a good tape for all the challengers of Sarries next year, of which there will be many, because both Europe and in the Premiership they are the flag bearers and the standard bearers. And deserved, like it was looking like a bridge too far for periods of that game, the double, but they managed it, and it's a great achievement. Very tough, deceptively tough achievement, despite what you may be on paper after winning a European Cup. It's very easy to think like, oh well, they're the best team in Europe, they should go on and win, and like largely that's true, but it's still more games after that high
a highly motivated, very good quality Exeter team coming at you, and as you see early in that game. And for a lot of Exeter's tries when they got around that area, if you're just a little bit off in terms of your physicality and your focus defensively, they're going to make you pay. You have to be absolutely perfect, and you have to be up for a fight, because that's where they're taking it.
Up for a final. This is it, like,
but a fight around those fringes, you have to be physically there. And Sarries weren't in bits, but got bailed out by their quality attack. And I think ultimately, just to wrap it up, I would say Mark McCall's Saracens, like definitely
Great
the best
team.
English team ever domestically.
Yeah.
In the conversation for the best European team squad ever.
Yeah,
Like to see them play 2011's Leinster, the Joe Schmidt Leinster vintage. Mark McCall Saracens, Joe Schmidt Leinster. Pretty close. And
some of those great Toulouse teams from the mid-noughties.
Yeah, theirs are more spread. There was never that dominance.
Yeah. There was a Leicester Tigers close by years.
Yeah.
There was a great Munster team. There have been great teams. There was the Toulon.
None are as good as Saracens.
The Toulon teams.
The conversation would be between the Toulon trip 3 in a row, Mark McCall Saracens, Joe Schmidt's Leinster, and I think then it would narrow it to Joe Schmidt's Leinster and Mark McCall Saracens. And I think probably Saracens have a good argument for being the best European side ever.
Yeah, it's a debate. It's an ongoing debate.
Yeah.
Stars in the jersey, man.
Stars in the jersey counts for a lot as well.
Does
3 of them now for Saracens, and huge congrats to them. I think the best team won. I think they're an awesome team. I don't think there's a lot of begrudgery out there, but I think we should all just be appreciating them because they're doing awesome things.
And they're making this competition great.
They're making the game better. They're making the game in Europe better with the way they attack. It's going to catch on. It's the untold story of them. It's not size and defence. The quality of their attack is...
Yeah. The coaching from top of what they do on the pitch is create a great brand of rugby that most sides in the Premiership can't live with. Credit to Exeter, they're the one team in that tournament, it seems, that can cope with them and go toe to toe with them in games, which is
shots off.
Yes, and fire some bolts. And we need
it's
to
worth
see
noting
more.
that no other English team can really live with Exeter either.
That's true.
Except for
Exeter
top. Yes,
Gloucester kind of match up well for them and kind of move it around them and can catch them, but. On balance of the season, league tables don't lie, and Gloucester fade away in other fixtures that they should be winning. So yes, the whole kind of English Premiership needs to lift its game, and in the wake of this Sarries wave, and like teams like Leicester obviously need to bounce back from this god awful season they've had, and a few others. But there's hope for them there. There's teams like Bristol will be a bit more kind of. They'll have aspirations next season. Teams like Sale, now that they've qualified for Europe, will have aspirations next season. It's just kind of curious which ones are going to.
My suspicion
make a step
is
up.
that duality, that sort of binary of Exeter and Saracens, that has been the trend in the last couple of years. The only potential shake-up I would see to that would be Gloucester ousting Exeter, but I really don't think that's likely. I think Exeter are actually moving in a more positive direction with where they're going. I think Hogg is a massive signing. He's in great form. He's had a good season.
He's also an aspect that they've been lacking in terms of like that wide channel clinical kind of converting.
He'll really help them. He'll really help them. Jeez, it'll cheer Cordero up no end to have that link up.
That's an interesting little dynamic. The back three potential.
Speed.
Would it be Noel, Cordero, and Hogg?
Yeah,
great.
Alex Cuthbert to bring in on rotation and all kinds of good.
Yeah.
So the exciting things from the Premiership, but ultimately for this season, that's it for English domestic rugby and Saracens. Big picture, domestic picture, all pictures, awesome team and a joy to watch. And we're not bitter as Leinster fans. You just got to thank them for showing us how it's done this year.
Yeah,
they really did.
We'll be back next year to challenge them.
Yeah,
and I suppose we'll move on to the. Thank you very much for watching that video. If you're new here, please like and subscribe down below and leave a comment as well because we enjoy the chat and conversation.